Hi folks, and good evening, stroke good morning. And let me just find my other remote. It was here before, I remember seeing it, but where did I put it? That's the question. It's not there, it's here somewhere. So I can turn around and you can look at me. Not that you'd want to, but move that bottle of detergent there for a minute. I had the remote before. There it is. As plain as the nose on my face, eh folks? Right, there we go. Whoops. Zoom out a little bit if I can. I'm a bit close there. Whoa. There we go. Right. What I'm going to do tonight, I'm going to do a bit of a questions and answers. I've never done one, so excuse the dog hairs on me t-shirt. He gets everywhere, my dog. Tonight I thought I'd do a questions and answers, like I said, and I know I need a shave. Right, one of the questions I've been asked is, how do you get the removable head shells off the Garrard arms when they've been there, you know, like the RC210 and stuff like that, and the earlier ones with the Bakelite heads on them and the cast arms. Well, it's very simple. They've been on there for many years and they can be difficult to get off. What I generally find is you have to hold the arm, the main part of the arm, you have to hold that. I would suggest clipping it onto its post, onto its rest, and just jiggle. Just jiggle and pull at the same time, and it will be tight because it's been in there for all them years, and they're designed to be a tight fit. There are no screws, as far as I know. I've never come across any screws. So if you've got one that's different, then yeah, let me know. I've never come across any screws in them. Usually just a good jiggle and a good pull gets them off. Capacitors. Why do I replace these if they're perfectly good? Well, I replace them because purely for reliability, and they might be good today, but they might not be good next week. They're 50 odd years old, like this one's 1956 the date on this one. So that's why I do that. That's why they get replaced. What else can we cover? Turntable idler wheels. We'll talk about them for a minute as well. Basically, your turntable idler wheel does actually go shiny on the edges, because that's the rubber starting to break down. And basically the way around that is to, the way I find, is to rotate, is to get a nut and bolt the same size as the idler, the same size as the hole in the idler, the bushing, or the brass bearing if you like, and pass it through, put the nut on it, tighten it up, and put it into a drill press if you've got one. Set the drill press on a fairly low speed, and then just hold a piece of emery paper to it to take off the glaze. Then when you've done that, get some rubber renew, which is about 11 or 12 pound a bottle, but be very careful when you're using it, and then just give it a clean with that. And the motor shaft you can clean with IPA, isopropyl alcohol. That covers that. The mechanism, we'll talk a bit about the mechanism. This applies to most decks. Nothing in particular, whether it be BSR, Calaro, Garrard, Joule, whatever. I've not done a Joule on the channel yet, but I've got one coming up soon. I'm not sure how soon, but there is one. There is one going to come up eventually. I do own one, so I have got one to do when I get to it. I've also got an HMV Stereo Master 2324, I think it is. That's coming up on the channel as well, to be recapped and sorted, with a Garrard, I think it's a TC3000 auto changer in it. And yeah, so if you've got any questions on any of that I've just mentioned, then yeah, by all means ask me. The question on the removable Garrard arms, head shells, that was asked to me a couple of weeks ago, but I had this video in mind, so I planned on talking about it now. Rather than just reply to one individual on the comments, I think it's easier to do it this way. Right. Let's talk about some of the tools that I use. I always use, because I think they're great, Antex soldering irons. Always use. This is a, I can't remember what this is now. I think it's, should tell me actually. Where's my glasses? No, it doesn't. It used to. Most of the writing's gone off. The information that used to tell you is gone. But I think this is a... Oh no, it tells me there, I just can't see it. Yeah, this is a 30 watt. Yeah, this is a 30 watt iron, which is great for doing valve stuff. It's all you need. I have a hot air rework station, which I use primarily for removing turntables and other seized mechanism components that have been glued together with grease. And the most frequent tool I use, and everybody should have one, is your multimeter. This one I use is a Mastech, and I've had this meter for many years, and it's always provided really good service. I've got a meter, I've got another meter there, another one in the drawer. I've got my old Avol 7 meter there as well. But I always go back to this is my go-to, this is my, if you like, daily driver. It's what I go to every time because it's accurate and it does the job. And you know, I think I paid about £40 or £50 for this when I purchased it. It could do temperature sensing, but I've since lost the temperature sensing probe. And doesn't do capacitors as far as I know. It'll do transistors, but I never use it for that. The next thing we'll move on to is this little instrument here. You've heard me mention this, and you've seen this in my hand a few times. And this is the Atlas. This is the Peak Atlas ESR model ESR 60. It's been updated now to a newer model, but I've had this one for a very long time. I got this when they first came out, and this is great for testing electrolytic capacitors, which is what it's for. It tells you on the it tells you on the front of it what it's actually for. Capacitors, capacitance, and in series resistance meter with automatic discharge function. It will discharge capacitors, providing you haven't got about 400 or 500 volts in them. If you've got a couple of volts in it, it'll discharge it, but any more than that, no, I never use it to do that. And if we go to the other tester, the other capacitor tester that I've got, this video is really just basically a rundown of the actual tools that I use. You know, always keep your tools in the protective cases. The reason why that's out is because it was used tonight on this Portadyne amp. Always keep your tools in protective cases wherever possible. Your tools will last a lot longer, they'll be protected, you know, and when you pay a lot for your tools, you expect to be, you know, you really should be looking after them. We'll get this little yellow one out here. This yellow one, find somewhere now to put that case for a minute. Put it there, it should be alright. Everything falls everywhere. Right, and this tester here is, I actually did a review on these for Jay over at Jay's Vintage Junk. You know, Jay's a very, very good friend of mine, and I did an overview on these for him, but not everybody's seen that, not everybody's looking for it, so, but that was really aimed at him personally. Right, this one will do automatic passive. This is an automatic, this is a Peak Atlas LCR model, LCR 40, and this is an automatic passive component analyzer, and you cannot discharge a capacitor with this, it will burn it out. It even tells you, warning, avoid charged or voltages. So you can't put anything into this. Now this is good because it will test speakers, it will test them as an inductor, and it will tell you what the value is in resistance as well. It will test it most types of inductors, well, all types I presume. Although very rarely use it for that. It will test resistors, and it will also test capacitors. If I put a capacitor on this, I'll put an electrolytic on it. No, I won't. I'll put this. This is meant to be 0.05 microfarad. This might read it in picofarad, but this is what I've taken out the Portadyne because I've replaced it, because I've done a recap on that amp. So what does it tell us it actually is? This was the tone correction capacitor. And that's telling us it's 81.2 nanofarad. And the test frequency is 1 kilohertz. And you know, that's how that works. If I test an electrolytic with it, it will test electrolytics, I believe, although I don't use it for that because I've got the ESR tester for that. But I believe this will test electrolytics, and it doesn't matter which way you connect them. Well, I know this will test electrolytics because I've seen Jay do it. It doesn't matter which way you connect the capacitor, this figures it out for you. So this capacitor is 50 mic. I know it doesn't read that because I've had it on the ESR. It's reading 45.6 on the electrolytic, and the test frequency is DC, obviously because it's electrolytic. And there we go. That's basically that tester. I also have I can't get to it right now, but I do have a transistor checker made by a semiconductor checker made by the same company, and a thyristor tester. And the semiconductor tester is brilliant. You can test rectifier, you can test diodes with it, you can test transistors, pretty much. You can't test ICs, but pretty much anything with 3 legs on or 2 legs on you can test. Even MOSFETs. You can even test FETs with it. Yeah, brilliant. And I highly recommend, if you're in the budget, if your budget allows, then you should think about picking up something like this, because it's certainly worth having. It can certainly pull you out the shit, you know. If your multimeter can't do capacitors, get something like that that can. Right, I also have up here, I have a Variac, I have a bench power supply. Let's see if we can turn the camera around and show you some of the other tools. If we can. Oh, that's the wrong way. See if we can show you some of the other tools that I actually have. Whoops. Right, there's my Variac with the two speakers and boxes on the top. That's great for old stuff that you're not sure about. Then I've got a power supply that's going to be replaced soon, because I've got a current limited one to go in there, which I got given off my friend Mick the other week. Next to that, I've got the signal tracer, which is not really a signal tracer. It's a null. It's a visual null indicator, but I use it as a signal tracer. I have a homemade probe that I use, and that there with the free with the digits lit up is my solder station. It's got an orange iron with it, because the original iron, believe it or not, the original iron, the actual body of the iron melted. So I bought that iron, and I took the circuit board out of the original and put it into this one, and it now works a treat without melting. And there's the heat gun for it there, which is great for getting stiff mechanisms apart. Let's go to my shelf. Whoops. And excuse the state of my workshop. Right, and there's my shelf, and up there's my other test instruments. I just don't want to stand up and reach. I've got a watt meter there for checking low wattage things like transistor radios and valve radio. You check with the wattage to make sure that you're getting the right amount, which has an impedance selector and stuff on it. We've got an LG oscilloscope here, which is handy to have. AVO 7 meter. I've got Mike's old, my mate Mike gave me that. That's his old signal generator, which you know, they're not very accurate then, but they get you by. They get the job done if it needs it. I've got my function generator here. I've got my frequency counter, and I've got my bench meter here. But I very rarely use that because it's manual range and I can't be arsed reaching out. That's why I use the Mustec. And I also have a digital storage USB oscilloscope, which I sometimes use in conjunction with my laptop. And that just about covers it. I've got a dim light tester here, a dim bulb tester here. I need to put a new socket on there for the bulb because I broke it, so I need to sort that out. And that's pretty much it. You know, that's Steve's radio there. It's got stuff on it, but don't worry, Steve, it's not getting scratched up. There's stuff underneath that to stop it getting scratched. I will never let your radio get damaged. It's up there for safety. It is going to be moved because I'm going to sort this out over the next couple of days. It's come down. Oh, that's the top. Up the top there is where I keep my chemicals and greases and oils and stuff like that. And then we're back down to where we normally are on the bench. And I'm in my striped underpants. I'm sporting my striped underpants, look. What they call me hipsters I got from Aldi the other week. I'm in my Aldi undies. And my Floor Bright t-shirts. Anyway, you know, but that's pretty much it. And the other thing I would recommend, I can't show you because the camera's on it. you might notice that I actually move you up and down, and I use this device here, which was very cheap. It was about 25 quid, and what it is, it's basically a motorised tripod mount, and I can move the tripod, I can move the camera without touching it, up or down, left or right. You know, that's fully down, and I can go fully up. I never do because the camera's a bit heavy for it, but it does the job, you know. And there's me DS there. My daughter got me for my birthday last year. Was it last year or the year before? I do like a game of Mario now and again. If we go around here, these are my, whoops, these are my component boxes where my components are kept. Resistors, capacitors, odds and sods, that kind of thing. And you know, I've got drawers down here in front of the bench. See, I've left a drawer open there because I've had a capacitor out of there earlier, and I don't think I go any further that way. No, that's as far as it'll go, and it'll go equally the same distance the other way. But I'm not going to go right around. I don't want to show you the state of my workshop, but you know, yeah. But yes, feel free to leave any comments, especially on my stripy underpants. I know there are people that will comment on that. But you know, I use a big screen to view the camera so that I can see whether something's in shot or not. Down here it's all needs sorting out. This is just junk really down here, apart from that case that belongs to a mate of mine. And like I say, I've got space under here to store things. I've got this cupboard here, this drawer here, I've got another cupboard here, I've got another set of drawers with 5 drawers in it. This has got 3 drawers in it, so plenty of room to store things. And I like to think that my workshop is pretty well equipped. Certainly the stuff I deal with, it's certainly well equipped to deal with what I want to do. And you know, but you don't need all the stuff I've got. You only need, you know, you only need a little bit of the basics. You know, you need, you know, the main thing, like I say, the main thing you need is a test meter. You know, a digital one that tests maybe capacitors, if that's what you want to do with your test meter. You know, I mean, if I'd have seen one at the time I bought that, I probably would have gone for it. But there again, I don't regret buying that meter because it's been a bloody good meter, and it still is. And I bought that in the early 2000s, and I've still got it, and I've never ever had a problem apart from just changing the battery once every now and again. It doesn't like being left on. There's no auto off. It doesn't like being left on, that meter. It likes to be turned off. But otherwise your battery just runs flat after a few days. You know, and basically that's it. Solder, I use leaded solder. I don't use lead free. I use lead solder. You know, I've got plug sockets along here so I can plug things in. I've got a set of I have a set of electronic scales for weighing tone arms, for checking the tone arm pressure, and I also have an original Garrard stylus checking tool, and believe it or not, I've checked this against the electronic scale one, and it actually more or less correlates. It's not bad. It actually tells you. You know, you put your stylus in the pan. You put your stylus in the pan there, and you press that lever with your finger, and you know, you read it on the scale down the front there. Simple, but effective. And you know, well, you press it down there, and you read it through this little window. Sorry, at the top here. There's a little indicator in there. And when that indicator's in the middle, that's how heavy your stylus is. That's how much pressure you're putting on it. The Garrard stylus pressure gauge for micro groove pickups. And there's actually 2 holes in the front here. I don't know what they're for, because it just says made in England and product patent. I think them there, I think them holes, I think they're just I'm not sure what they are. They're not adjusters, because I've had this apart, because there's a little spring in here and the spring popped off once, so I had to undo it to hook the spring back on. But you know, there's 2 holes in the back as well. Oh, no, what they do, they go right through and they hold the mechanism together. That's what they do, they go through and hold the mechanism together. Basically, because everything pivots, you see. But really handy tool if you haven't got a digital scale. And even if you have got a digital scale, it's also nice to use an old tool now and again and get a second opinion. But I just thought I'd do a questions and answers, a Q&A video, and maybe a little talk about some of the tools I do use. And you know, but the main tool that you should have in your arsenal is safety. You know, you should always do it safely and never ever take a chance. Never. Because I read an article once about a guy who took a record player apart, not dissimilar to this one, and he switched it on and stuck his head through it. He removed the inspection panel, stuck his head in where stuck his head and had a look while he turned it on, and the capacitor flew out and took his eye with it. So, you know, safety above everything. You know, if you're gonna do it, you have to do it safely, and I can't emphasize that enough. I mean, I sleep well in my bed at night knowing that people are playing records or listening to radios that I've actually done, safe in the knowledge that it's safe. You know, that includes 3 amp fuses in the plugs, 3 core power leads where required, even if they weren't fitted by the manufacturer. If there's an isolation transformer, there's every chance you can put a 3 core power lead in. If there's no isolation transformer and you've got one of your wires going straight to the chassis, then no, you can't do that. Well, I think you can. I think you can do it through a bloody big high value capacitor, high voltage capacitor, but I wouldn't want to do it. I just, when I get them sort of things in, I just thingy with them. I just change the power cord, so there's a brown in one side and a blue in the other, and I always send the blue to chassis and the brown goes to positive, or live if you like. And that's how I always do it, because I think it's the safest way to do it in them particular units, because at least if the plug ever gets broke or comes off, then at least they know, everybody with common knowledge in the UK know that brown goes to the fuse. It's brown to the right and blue to the left, looking at the open side of the plug with the plug open. So, you know, nobody in the UK should ever get that wrong. So that's the way I like to do it. But if there's an isolation transformer, there's every likelihood that you're safe to earth it, as far as I'm aware. If there's any points where people think I'm wrong, then yes, you're welcome to comment on them. That's fine. But I think I've covered everything extensively. You know, I tend to, during the course of repairs, I do tend to go through a lot of capacitors, high voltage electrolytics. I do go through a lot of them, and I do spend quite a bit of money buying them in, and because I go through a lot of them, not only for my own repairs but for other repairs for other people as well. Like I say, even if these things don't need changing, even if they still test good, I still change them. Cause yeah, they're good today, might not be good next week or even tomorrow. I could show the customer the record player working, and the capacitor could fail when I turn it on, so I change them, which I think is a safe bet. There's some of my own stuff which has still got some of them in, but that's my own stuff that I'm not going to sell, that I'm keeping for myself as part of my collection. Some of my tape recorders and some of my record players, I've still got them. But if I was to decide to sell something, then yes, I would do a recap. I would change them and put modern ones in, some brand new ones in. But I always change the capacitor in the tone circuit. The red and black Plessey ones, them horrible red TOC things, I think they are. Changed those. Got some of them up here. I might give you an example. This is all the shit I pulled out of that stereo sound. When I did the stereo sounds, just bring the camera around, just bring you around a bit. I need you all to face me for a minute. There we go. And we've got some of these red ones here, which are electrolytic. Some of these, which are electrolytic, but they're different to ordinary. They're not like electrolytics that we know. They're not like modern axial electrolytics where this end is positive and this end would be negative. No, it's not. This end with the rubber grommet in, or whatever it is they've put in there, that's the negative end. This end here is the positive end. Sorry, this end here is the positive end, and they're horrible, these capacitors. I mean, they were all right in the day to get the job done, but 40 or 50 years on, and no, they need to be replaced. We've got these blue ones here. These are out the tone circuit of the stereo sound, out of the bass circuit, bass part of the tone control, and these actually still work and they're still in spec, but I changed them. Why? Because I don't want to go back to it again. These were the electrolytics out of the stereo sound. I replaced those as well because I don't want to go back to it, and I might want to sell that. In fact, I do want to sell that. I'm not going to keep that, and that's why I did that the way I did it. That's basically that. And but that's all you need. Just a bit of common sense, a bit of just really a bit of common sense, a bit of some basic tools. You don't need everything I've got. I recommend a lot of it though. Pardon me, oscilloscopes you can pick up. I picked that LG up at the swap meet the very first time I went, and I paid £10 for it. Sorry, I paid £8. He wanted £10, and I said, "What, a tenner?" And he thought that I was whinging that the price was too high. I couldn't believe it was £10. I was quite prepared to pay. He went, "Oh, go on and give me £8. Oh, give me £8 for it." And the first scope I bought, which was made by a company called Scopex, I think that was about £20, £25. I bought that off a television engineer up in Buxton. I went to pick it up, me and my mate Captain Pugwash, as I call him because he's short and fat. He drove me up there to go and get it. And within the first time I used that scope, it paid for itself, because it helped me track down a fault that was in the sound, but it was in the power supply, but it could be heard in the sound, and it helped me track it down. And it took a lot of time off me looking, and you know, so it paid for itself in the fact it was useful. And the first time I used it in anger, and yeah, it got the job done. So I do recommend an oscilloscope. You don't have to buy one of these all singing, all dancing things. You buy whatever your wallet will allow. You know, pretty much any modern decent scope will do. Made within the last 20 or 30 years. Anything will do. Even some older stuff will do. If you're doing a lot of radios, and yeah, a signal generator, a signal tracer. It takes a lot of the legwork out. Them little peak testers, they take a lot of the legwork out, and you know, they give you a better than a good idea of the state of a capacitor or resistor. You know, really good. And you know, I will always buy stuff like that, because them peak tools are made in Britain. I've spoke to the people who actually make them. I've had dealings with them. They're very good to deal with. Peak Electronics up in Buxton here in the UK. They're very good people to deal with. In fact, they sent me too many instruments. By mistake, I contacted them, and he says, you know, could we give you something for you know, to reward your honesty? So I says, yeah. I says I could do with a couple of cases. So he sent me out a couple of cases for me instruments, because I bought me instruments one at a time. If you buy them one at a time, you don't get a case. If you buy them two at a time, they put them in a case for you. And he says, you know, can we reward your honesty? So I said, yeah, I could do with a couple of cases. So he sent me a couple of cases for me instruments. You know, and really, really good people to deal with. The instruments are really good. I haven't been lied to by one yet. You know, so there we go. Anyway, if you've got any questions then always ask me. If I've got anything incorrect, then yeah, very politely tell me that I'm incorrect and explain why I'm incorrect, and you know, we can then, you know, get the job done, so to speak. Anyway, folks, I'm going to end it here. Thank you very, very. Sorry there's been no fart in this video. I just haven't had a bout of flatulence tonight. I should have had a tin of baked beans. You know, I remember when I was about 14, I got arrested for a misdemeanor by the police. Well, you wouldn't get arrested by anyone else, would you? Anyway, and the sergeant said to me, he says, any, what did he say? He says, any allergies? Do you have any allergies? I said, yeah, baked beans. So he looked at me and went, baked beans? I said, yeah, make me fart. Anyway, he come from behind the counter, and says to me, he said, bend over, and me like an idiot, I bent over, and he planted his size 10 Doc Martin, police issue Doc Martin boot right up my arsehole. You know when you've been kicked up the arse by a copper? Yeah, you know. Yeah, I got stopped once on a push bike by a copper. I says, I'm not talking to you. He says, why? I says, speaking to you is like having oral sex. One slip of the tongue, I'm in the shit. Anyway, I thought I'd throw a couple of jokes in there at the end, have a bit of fun, you know, because it wouldn't be me otherwise, would it? But yeah, that's a bit of a look at some of the stuff I use. And you know, thank you very much for watching, folks, and you know, stay tuned, because there's a Dansette Bermuda coming up, and before that comes up, I've got an itchy foot. That's why I keep bending over. Look at that, I've got a right hair hole in the top of my head. I've got a video on this coming up. This is the amplifier out of a Portadyne. I've already recapped it, but you'll see all that on the video. You know, I don't need to talk about this. I've got to finish it off, but that's for that video. I'll save that for that video. Anyway, folks, you all take it easy and do it safely. Be safe. You know, most of all, importantly, be safe. Don't take chances. It ain't worth it. And I'll catch you all later, folks. And thank you very much for watching. Bye for now.